Welcome back to Reese's Side Quests for another travel review video. Today I'm going to be talking about my experience traveling to Las Vegas, Nevada. To give you some context, the city of Las Vegas is largely known for casinos, lavish hotels, the food, party, and entertainment scenes, plus a very unique spread of spectacle-oriented architecture. It's a city of 641,000 people in the metro area, with a metro area GDP of about 160 billion US dollars, putting it on par with much larger cities like Cleveland or San Antonio, due largely to the massive tourist spending. It was formally incorporated into a city in 1911, but its history of human occupation spans back much farther than that. Humans have lived in the Las Vegas Valley, which is a valley containing several natural springs in an otherwise desert environment, for at least the last 10,000 years. The archaic era desert cultures, predecessors to the ancestral Puebloans that you might have heard of, and possibly influenced by the nearby Cochise culture, lived in the Las Vegas Valley, documented as early as 9000 BC. They were highly adaptive and nomadic hunters and gatherers. After them, the ancestral Puebloans were ancient people who inhabited this area from approximately 200 to 1150 CE, leaving behind many remnants of their civilization in the forms of petroglyphs, pottery shards, and other artifacts. They were very skilled farmers, constructing intricate irrigation systems to cultivate the desert land. Their legacy was inherited by indigenous groups such as the Southern Paiutes, and there are 28 federally recognized Native American tribes in the state of Nevada today. The name of Las Vegas came from a Spanish word for the meadows, noting that it contains some lush greenery around its natural springs, in contrast to the desert around it. Before its incorporation into a city, Las Vegas was largely just a trading post for people that were traveling out toward or from California, and needed to stop over in the harsh environment. And the town that gradually built up around it became known for its scenes of bars, gambling, and various other things that you wouldn't necessarily be able to get away with in other parts of the US. The first thing that we would have recognized as the party and gambling Las Vegas is what's known as Old Las Vegas, which is actually in a completely different area than the current Las Vegas Strip. So most of my time on this trip was spent in the area of the Las Vegas Strip, and I hope to make it to Old Las Vegas in a future trip. So the airport in Las Vegas, which most everyone will be flying into to travel there, is called the Harry Reid International Airport, but it's abbreviated as LAS, so it makes sense for Las Vegas. Our flight coming from Newark, coming out of New York City, was about 6 hours. I was fortunately able to sleep on most of the flight. The first thing you'll notice about the airport is that the casino is basically right there as soon as you step off the plane. They've got slot machines and other kinds of gambling devices, I suppose, literally in the airport terminals, going right up to where the seating area is in when you're waiting for your flight. And believe it or not, they even have enclosed areas surrounded by glass walls where people can smoke a cigarette and play on the slot machines much like you would in the actual casino. So that was really odd, honestly, to see, and a little bit, I don't personally gamble, so it was a little bit off-putting, I guess, to see this kind of thing that's very much kind of playing into the idea that people are super addicted to gambling, that they would just do it at any moment in time. But, that's a theme that kind of is resounding throughout this town. So we'll keep moving. Another thing that I did like about the airport was that it integrated a lot of nice neon signs that was kind of a throwback to the old Vegas aesthetic. We were traveling there in late March and early April, and the weather was surprisingly warm. I packed a lot of layers because we were also going to the Grand Canyon later in the trip, which is a bit cooler. However, in Las Vegas, even in the first week of April, you can largely wear shorts and a short-sleeved shirt and be completely comfortable. It gets up into the 80s in the day. In terms of ground transportation, you're largely going to be taking either an Uber or a taxi, and there is a few differences in how those operate from what you might be used to normally. So the taxis oftentimes have preferential pickup spots and drop-off spots right in front of the hotel entrances, whereas the Ubers have to drop you off a little ways away from the hotel or around the back end of the hotel or something like that. So although we tried both, and from what I could tell, the taxis did tend to be a couple dollars more expensive. They do offer a little bit more convenience in terms of you can. So I'll let you decide. Usually the ride from the airport to the Las Vegas Strip is about $20 plus tip. For an Uber, it was a little less than that, and the cab, it was a little bit more than that. So just keep that in mind. The Las Vegas Strip is incredibly close to the airport. The first hotel that we stayed at on the Las Vegas Strip was the Park MGM. Originally opened in 1996, it was formerly the Monte Carlo, which you might have heard of, which is based on the casino in Monaco. It was remodeled in, I believe, the 2010s to have a more neutral aesthetic to it, and it largely has a similar layout to other Las Vegas resorts and hotel casinos that I had seen on this trip, with a casino floor, some shops, restaurants, and a pool across the first and second floors, and then a large multi-wing tower with the hotel rooms. I really did like our room at this place. I thought it was a pretty decent deal at about $100 a night on weeknights, with about a $50 room cost plus a $50 resort fee. There's a relatively easy process to do the online check-in, and then you just scan your phone QR code on this little machine. In terms of the food at the Park MGM, right in the lobby there is a Starbucks, but it's not your average Starbucks. You'll notice the prices are a little bit different. It'll be about an average of $10 for a medium-sized coffee. There's a location of Eataly, the Italian grocery store slash restaurant that's, I believe, based out of New York. So we walked through there but didn't go because we're able to go there since we live relatively close to Manhattan. So the second hotel that we stayed at for the second half of the trip for the last 2 nights was the Excalibur, the one that famously looks like a giant castle. And it was pretty inexpensive, about $65 total per night. And I really do like the endearing kind of weird architecture of the Excalibur and the fact that it embraces the quirkiness of that era of the buildings on the Strip, which we'll get a little bit more into later what some of those look like. But there are several examples where they're meant to just look like extremely exaggerated forms of well-known famous buildings from around the world. And I think this one does it well in a very whimsical way, where you can even walk out along the ramparts of the castle as a cut-through to get between different areas. So, exploring the Strip. This is a part where you're not going to necessarily want to take around cabs and Ubers and things like that. It'll just get way too expensive. Even though things can be a little bit spread out on the Strip, it's a couple miles from end to end. It's not as close together as it may seem, because each of these resort buildings are really immense in person. Like, each one is the size of a mall in width and the size of a skyscraper in height. So the blocks that they form are much larger than normal city blocks. So when you look at it on a map, you might be a little bit fooled by how close together things are. Still, the walking is worth it, and I think it's the best way to see everything. However, if it's too warm for you, there are corridors largely between every single hotel casino complex where you can basically walk in between them completely indoors. So that's what we started to do, and saw some of the most iconic buildings on the Strip and got to go in and out of some of the more interesting structures that you can see along the way. So the first, which is relatively near the Park MGM, is the New York, New York, which is pretty funny when you actually do live in New York, because they are incredibly attentive to detail with the construction of this place. You obviously can see the Empire State Building and Chrysler Building from the big skyline towers that comprise the hotel towers, but walking along amidst the complex that's there, as well as inside of the mall restaurant interior structure that each of these has, the attention to detail is very, very high. And I mean, they include a lot of buildings that are based on real New York City buildings that are not necessarily famous. We were also able to go to the Mandalay Bay as well as the Wynn, which both largely are decorated in just kind of luxurious styles, essentially, that I appreciated them, but it doesn't stand out in the same way that the more iconic, funky buildings do. So next up, the Luxor, the one that is famously shaped like a pyramid. When you walk in, and this is one of the few that actually you can access by tramway. When you get off the tramway at the Luxor, you're greeted by a giant sphinx that's based on the Sphinx in Giza, I would only assume. However, it is actually larger than the one than the real one. The interior also is shaped like a pyramid. The rooms are stacked kind of diagonally, coming up inward toward the center of the pyramid. So I've seen photos of the interior of the rooms, and the walls and windows are actually slanted a little bit towards the top. We didn't do it because the cost was about $40 per person, but they have at the Luxor an exhibit where you can see a one-for-one recreation of what King Tut's tomb would have originally looked like before they took the artifacts out of it. The Venetian, which is the one with the gondolas, that's one that I was significantly underwhelmed by, honestly. We went in and saw these gondolas, and I was expecting romantic, low lighting, nice, pleasant, soft music, but it's extremely bright and harsh lighting. The water looks blue as a pool, and these guys on the gondola are really not even that good at singing. So for paying $200+ for a private gondola tour, certainly not worth it. We didn't do it. But if you do just want to sit in there, we found a really nice opportunity to get a good seating, and that is to go to the macaroon place in the Venetian. I don't actually have the name of it written down here, but if you go there, you're able to eat your snacks in a balcony area that gives you a unique overlook of the little waterway, and you get to see the gondolas going underneath you. The coolest part of the Venetian, honestly, was the architecture of the exterior around the back end of it, because they really nailed the intricate Venetian architecture there, whereas the interior looks a little bit lackluster, I'll just say. The most impressive, but also the most strange of all of the places on the Strip, I found to be Caesar's Palace. And this is a place where you really feel like you're in the back rooms, because when you walk into the publicly accessible part of Caesar's Palace, which is both the casino area and then the mall/restaurant area, which is known as the Caesar's Forum Shops, you're met with a very, very strange sight, and that is a artificial sky and seemingly endless rows of Italian street blocks. And this complex is truly massive. It's around 600 to 700,000 square feet, putting it about the size of a true full-size mall. And this is just one of the malls in Las Vegas that's connected to a casino, connected to a hotel. So when you're walking around there endlessly, it makes you feel like you're going a little bit crazy, because it just keeps going on and on and on. The shops in many of these malls are generally the same kinds of luxury clothing, fashion, and other goods shops that you're going to find in other big cities across the world. So I didn't really bother to do a lot of shopping. Alright, next up is really one of the highlights of the trip, and that is the food and drink scene of Las Vegas. So next up is Carver's Steakhouse, and this is one I went to with my girlfriend's family. It was a very, very high-end steakhouse, relatively typical of what you would expect for that, something you would see in a large city with, options of filet, ribeye, tomahawk, etc., strip, and the large shareable sides as well. We got the mac and cheese, as well as my girlfriend and I shared the ribeye. Next is the Primrose, which is a breakfast and brunch spot that's inside of the Park MGM. This place was really good. I would probably give it a solid 8 out of 10, and we ended up going there twice for breakfast. They have a really wide variety of breakfast foods, ranging from, sweets like waffles and French toast. I had the shrimp and grits one day. Another brunch spot we went to was the Salt and Ivy restaurant at the Aria Hotel, which was quite a bit of a walk from where we were staying, but it was nice out, so it was worth doing. This is one of the best rated brunch spots on the Strip, and I think it does deserve that title. The food was extremely good. I had the Eggs Benedict, and Brinley got the Banana Brulee French toast. I really liked on the side of the Eggs Benedict, they had these hash browns that were basically formed into cubes. And I would have thought it would have made them, maybe soggy or something, but they were really very good, so I would recommend that. Next up, Gordon Ramsay's Hell's Kitchen restaurant. This was a major highlight of the trip. My girlfriend's a huge fan of Hell's Kitchen and Gordon Ramsay in general. So we were able to actually get in without a reservation. Generally, if you have a larger group or you need to get a table for that reason, you do need a reservation in advance, or you're going to be sitting there waiting for $30 an hour. Some people say on the weekends way more than that. But the hack is that if you're by yourself or maybe as a couple, you can get in with bar seating. Just walk in and ask the host and say, is there open seating at the bar? It's first come, first serve, and you can order food at the bar. So we were able to get the key Gordon Ramsay specials. We had the lobster risotto that we split as like an appetizer, and then we had the beef Wellington, which I had never had, and I can't say it's overrated. It was absolutely delicious. The only thing that I would say is it is a little bit smaller than I would expect. It was probably about $70-something for only about a 6-ounce fillet. It's a very small fillet in that thing, so it's absolutely delicious though. I wouldn't overlook it for that reason. Last but certainly not least, this was recommended to me by almost everybody on social media that had been to Las Vegas, and that is the Wynn Buffet, which is certainly the best rated buffet in Las Vegas, and I can certainly see why. This buffet it's not cheap. It's probably, maybe $80 a person plus an additional fee to get drinks. The food there is top tier. It's not your normal selection of buffet food. I've heard that the Bellagio buffet and some of the other buffets in the Strip feel like you're paying $80 for Golden Corral. But this was top tier. I mean, you're having nice charcuterie, good cheeses, sushi, different cuts of steak, different cuts of other meats, fish, and there's also rotating selections that are constantly coming out. I mean, it was really the best buffet experience I've ever had. And foods, my favorite thing was they had a baked salmon dish that they served out on small plates essentially, and you could pick it up and just put it on your larger buffet plate. So the entertainment scene in Las Vegas is also something that people make the trip out there for alone. And we were able to see 3 different shows that were really in 3 different categories. And don't worry, it's none of the sus categories that many of these shows can be in. But the first was the Carrot Top comedy show. And Carrot Top is a relatively well-known stand-up comedian, I would say. I've seen clips of him on the internet forever. And he's been in residency, which I actually didn't know this until I saw the intro of his show. He's been in residency at the Luxor in their auditorium there for 30 years. And I think that was very evident in the show in that he was very calm and collected and able to work the crowd just masterfully while doing his weird prop gags that he's known for, essentially, where he kind of makes these weird props to pull out at certain moments to fit his jokes. But the opener for the show was absolutely terrible, and that's another story I'm not even going to get into. But so next up, for a musical experience, the MJ live performance. And I honestly had a really good time. I thought the music was fun, and the spectacle of it all was incredibly enjoyable. My girlfriend, however, has seen the Michael Jackson performance on Broadway in New York and compares it to that in terms of both the structuring of the show, the quality of the dancing, and the Michael Jackson of it all is just not up to par in the Las Vegas one as it is to the excellency apparently of the Broadway one. The dancing was a little bit off, a little bit janky, but, it's a fun show, I'll say that. Finally, and absolutely my favorite one, was when we were staying at the Excalibur, we were able to go to their famous in-house show that's been running for, I believe, 30 years, and that is the jousting show, the Tournament of Kings. which is a choreographed medieval show with song and dance performances, sword combat, and jousting. So they serve you food with the ticket, which includes a half chicken breast, or a half a whole chicken rather, a corn cob, a potato, and then an apple pie dessert along with the roll. And then you get like a Pepsi and a water along with it. You can order beers for an additional cost. They do not give you cutlery, as I had heard from watching videos about it beforehand. So you are eating the chicken and everything else with your bare hands and just kind of dealing with it with the wet wipes they provide you afterwards. People have told me, or asked me rather, do they serve you the food before they start, kicking up a bunch of dust with the horses? And the answer is yes. They serve you the food really right at the beginning of the show when they're still kind of introing everything and singing and performing rather than running around on horses as much. So you don't get dirt on your food. Don't worry about that. The show itself was just incredibly fun. You choose which section you sit in based on different medieval nationalities, I guess. So we sat in the Ireland section, as my girlfriend is Irish American. And this is, it's kind of seen as a family show and seen as corny or possibly dated in terms of its effects. But if you have the opportunity, it's really one of the most, fun, energetic things you can do in Las Vegas. The one thing we did to get off of the Las Vegas Strip and take a 15-minute drive over to the area of Old Las Vegas is to see the Old Mormon Fort. There's a museum as well as the grounds of the historical fort, and then a spring and creek that recreates the original springs of the area. The fort, originally built in 1855, was the first non-native permanent settlement in the area. From 1829, this creek on the site was a known resting spot along the old Spanish Trail from Santa Fe to Los Angeles. This is the route that I was talking about of people going out to California and needing a spot to essentially settle down and get some water. In 1847, Brigham Young and the Mormons, or the Church of Latter-day Saints, founded a settlement in Salt Lake City, and then the Mormons also settled San Bernardino, California in 1851. So this site basically served as a middle ground for their group to travel back and forth between those two cities. On this site, I also was able to see a Costa's hummingbird. If you've followed the channel, you know that I put out a lot of birding content, so this was really wonderful to see. And I'll have a full-length birding video for Nevada and Arizona coming out soon after I do the Grand Canyon video. If you're going to get a rental car, which I wouldn't recommend just for moving around the Strip, but if you're going to leave the Strip to go to, say, the Grand Canyon like we are, you're going to pick up your rental car likely in the parking garage of the Treasure Island Casino Hotel, which I personally think needs to be rebranded as a One Piece theme, and the Excalibur needs to be rebranded as a Game of Thrones theme, if either could ever get those licenses. I think it would bring back the popularity. So to sum everything up, the Las Vegas Strip, I would say it does have an immense amount of amenities in that you can have any kind of luxurious food, shopping, shows, anywhere you look and walk. However, it does at times feel very corporatized. It does feel very hyper commercial, as well as kind of sad in terms of people that are addicted to gambling, and you see kind of just losing immense amount of money left and right. The cost of it is very high relative even to other travel destinations in the United States. The food scene is good, but again, very expensive, and you're certainly paying more than you would in almost any other location for the same quality of food. In terms of accessibility, the overall transport is, I would say, middling. There's usually very strange routes to have to walk around where you have to take overhead crosswalks and skywalks and escalators and so on just to cross the street, which becomes a little bit annoying when you realize that this is just an intentional structuring to get people to move between the casinos in different ways. In the future, if I were to go back to Las Vegas, I would definitely prioritize spending more time off the Strip, seeing some more of the local, less corporate food scene, as well as the entertainment scene, and also making the trip to Old Las Vegas to make sure to see some of the 20th century history of Las Vegas as well. So I hope you enjoyed this travel review. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Risa's Side Quests for more travel and history content.